You're listening to Mainland 98.3 FM. The sound of Lagos. Mainland 98.3 FM, your number one radio. Reaching the stars. The sound of Lagos.
Dr. B on this, ladies and gentlemen.
All right, welcome to It is Mainland 98.3 FM, another day for us to do a review, dig deep into the manifestos of the gubernatorial candidates in Lagos State. Yesterday was an interesting time that we had with the gubernatorial candidate of the ADC, African Democratic Congress, Mr. Funsho Doherty, and we discussed extensively and reviewed and we did some, fleshing out of the Tiger agenda. A whole lot that we had to talk about there. But today we're going to be moving on to the Labour Party, the gubernatorial candidate of the Labour Party in person of Mr. GBADEBO VIVOUR RHODES. My name is Omobola Sandra. Deji is here again this evening. Deji Akikpelu, good evening.
Hey, good evening. It's nice to be back. It's nice to be back in the studio here.
All right.
Day 2, reviewing the Labour Party manifesto for the city of Lagos.
Mm-hmm. All right, and of course, Opeyemi Akiyode is also here in the studio. Opeye, good evening.
Well, good to be back. The business of keeping Lagos safe and successful is what we're going to be talking about for these next couple of days on this show.
Okay, so let's just get straight to it. We already informed you that this is in 4 phases. Today is phase 2. On Friday, we'll have another phase, and by next week, Wednesday, we'll have the 4th and final phase of the manifesto review. Today, just as I've mentioned, we are going to be digging deep into the manifesto of the governorship candidate of the Labour Party, Mr. GBADEBO VIVOUR RHODES. But before we go in, I would also like to introduce his representative, person in charge of his his thoughts and policies, Mr. Emmanuel Oladipo. Yes, I got that correctly. Oladipo, Mr. Emmanuel Oladipo. Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you for joining in. Hello?
Yes, I said I'm currently here. It's a pleasure.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so let's just get straight to it. We have just less than an hour to cover so much of all of this. It's a whole lot to look at. That's 10 focal points from what I've gotten here, and let's see what we have here. And majorly from what we're seeing here, we're seeing working on housing. We also looked at security. There's a whole lot that's been said about security. Another thing that we're also looking at, resolving Lagos traffic problems comprehensively. Also looking at the thought of, by building 4 new rail routes in 4 years. I'm not even going to dig deep into that one yet, because that is actually something that before we came on air, it was something that my colleagues and I were having a conversation on how capital intensive that is going to be. We're also going to be looking at moving Lagos to a $150 billion economy by generating wealth for Lagosians. There's a whole lot that we're going to be looking at and analyzing the manifesto in itself, but we're going to be going through the SWOT analysis. That's what we're going to be using. So before we look at what is the implementation strategy for this one, we'll also look at the things that we saw that we said, this is actually something that could pose some sort of strength to the manifesto or the candidature of Mr. GBADEBO VIVOUR RHODES. All right. So before we go deep now, there's one thing that's major in Lagos. One thing that Lagos is synonymous for is the traffic condition. All right, crazy traffic problems, crazy traffic conditions, and whatnot. And it's interesting to know that there's Mr. GBADEBO has already put in place, or is thinking of putting in place, building 4 new railroads in 4 years, and also thinking of fast tracking its intermodal transportation system and using the development of Lagos rail network as the launchpad for the industrialization of Lagos and Nigeria as whole. Now, if we look at that particular one, I would like to ask, that's a big one. It's a big one. It's almost like the golden fleece, if I may put it that way. So what exactly are the plans put in place? It's quite expensive. It's a very expensive project, but what are the plans put in place to generate the funds that will be able to make that a reality?
All right, thank you very much. And again, it's a pleasure to be here. So when you look at Lagos State, a major thing that, like you've touched on, is the fact that traffic problems are like at the core of some of the real challenges that have been battling with Lagos State development agenda. And that means that before you can be able to address some of these traffic and transportation issues, you need to have a proper ambitious plan. Now, a lot of people will recognize the fact that to achieve these 4 new railroads in 4 years is something that is impossible. But what we are seeing is something that is actually possible, and this would be leveraged on the existing plan that already that is in place for this new railroad. However, this needs to be done in a way where it is transparent. The funds that you use to drive it are funds that are actually also available. All that is needed, to a large extent, is that transparency that currently does not exist. And some of these funds, for instance, you have the climate change fund that actually are in existence, but you just need to be able to tap into, this capital that needs to, that is accessible to different governments. You also have like cross-funding initiatives. If you go deeper into this manifesto, you'll see that there are, aspects around cross-funding, like for instance, giving funds from luxury housing, develop funds that are actually generated from what developers are building in eyebrow areas, and other, very interesting cross-funding initiatives that can actually fund this kind of projects. You also have international partners that are really partner with you, but again, what is needed is that transparency. You see development finance institutions that are willing to come on board, but when the transparency isn't there and there is no good, governance, plan along the projects that you are actually envisioning, then that becomes a challenge. We also have like the open government funding. I think that is done by EU. It's like a tripartite arrangement, and that requires again a government that is transparent. So there are different, funding initiatives that are available. It's just to be able to clearly have this plan well articulated, and that will require a lot of, technocrats coming into the picture, positioning this plan. This is a vision. This is something that is achievable, and that is how, we plan on ensuring that we can effectively execute on this project.
All right, but in all of this that you have mentioned now, what about the rural dwellers?
Okay.
How do you intend to involve them in all of this to let the wealth go around and let them also be inclusive? Let it be an inclusive strategy.
Yes, so this is going to be inclusive in the sense that we are not just going to take the normal routes in which current and previous administration has done, excluding things in this set of areas. What we plan is to adopt some of those existing frameworks that the likes of World Bank, human rights organizations have already set aside for resettlement and compensation. These are things that are already in existence. It's just to apply them in such a way that it involves serious engagement with some of these communities. That is what we envision in terms of bringing this set of communities into the picture for such projects.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Emmanuel. Okay, so let's keep moving now. Aside from all of that, there's also I'm seeing here from the manifesto, there's also the fact that you intend to link transportation and housing, problem in the city, linking the transportation and also the housing system. I'm also seeing here that there's also going to be some sort of emphasis when going challenges of, trying to solve some urban slum and rural development areas, whereby going into public-private partnership operational models for urban planning. So how do you think that's going to come into play, linking transportation and housing problems, the PPP?
All right. Like I mentioned earlier, there's going to be, for instance, that cross fund that's going to be established. And one thing that is key for cross fund is the fact that you need to clearly understand who the stakeholders or who the partners or investors are. And this would require that for every rail route that we're going to probably, build, for instance, using the transportation as an example, we are going to take into consideration some of the, challenges they already face, which is, for instance, you will notice the way livability is spread across in Lagos. You see that most people actually rent apartments or buy apartments in places where they know they can actually have access to good transportation system and even good road networks, for instance. So what we're trying to do here is saying, how do we ensure that some of these rail routes are actually also connected to even the most remote areas where the first and last mile solutions that also would follow through on this are also well established. Now, that's one way to look at it. The other way to look at it, for instance, is the trust fund there's going to be a social housing trust fund. That is also something that is going to be well considered, knowing for a fact that there has been a lot of these housing issues, the deficits that actually exist, especially for those that cannot afford housing, afford housing in Lagos. So that is also going to be established, and in a way, we plan to ensure that whoever is going to be our partner for this certain fund, there's going to be but for funds of this nature, technocrats at the end of the day have a better understanding about the framework, because a sub fund actually established, there's already parameters that are defined, for such cross funds. But beyond that is the fact that such funds need to be channeled for the purpose of why they've been established in the first place. So that's one guide. The other guide will be that the fund is, there's that transparency again, which is very important. And there's because of what is called, it's a short fund. So there needs to be that trust among, all the partners that will be involved with such a fund. So that's the way we're also going to look at it.
Okay. So let me just according to our reviewers, one of the opportunities cited in the area of transportation is on the one that you mentioned here. It said engaging bus hailing platforms to address first and last mile solutions to transportation in the state, with a view of opening up the BRT lanes to these platforms. Our reviewers consider this as a very big opportunity if your candidate makes it. But the further question to that is, how would you continue to incentivize the public transport, use of public transport among private car owners? This is what is trying to address, I believe. But how furthermore are you trying to solve this problem of encouraging people to drop their cars and begin to use public transportation?
All right. Thank you very much for that question. So how we view it is the fact that we know that some of these bus hailing platforms, or we like to also ride sharing platforms, they convey passengers, which means that in a way they kind of decongest, car ownership, on Lagos road. So for BRT lanes, what needs to be done here in terms of the incentive is for that agreement, that handshake between such bus hailing platforms with government to actually give them the rights of way to run through such BRT lanes, and in exchange also finding a way to decongest, normal roads. Beyond this, we all know that currently for BRT, help is improving on public transportation, as we can refer to. But this ride sharing platform or bus hailing platform, it will mean that they have that capacity because they operate within the private sector. They are not limited in terms of the time in which they operate to an extent. They also leverage technology and definitely even improve on public transportation. And so for us, that's one way with transportation, and ensuring that the private sector actually are active participants, especially with the transport using the BRT lane as the reference point.
All right then. Thank you very much, Mr. Emmanuel. This is we're looking through the manifesto of Mr. GBADEBO VIVOUR RHODES of the Labour Party gubernatorial candidate in Lagos State, and we're moving on now. While the community, agrees through signing a commitment to upgrade their area within a 3-year, time frame, of course, extendable in 3 years increments, only for good reason. However, this is a good one, yes, but then can you expand on what you expect, affordable housing for the people to come from?
Sorry, please, can you reframe that question again?
All right, I will take it again. Thank you very much. All right, so as regards, security of tenure to facilitate financing, and while the community would agree to, commitment to upgrading their area within a 3-year time frame, that's from your manifesto. All right. So, can you expand on what you expect, or where you expect affordable financing for this to come from?
All right. So for us, what we're trying to establish here is we're giving more opportunities, especially for those that live within these communities, where they cannot really, afford, housing. And so what that means is, again, still back to what I mentioned earlier, with respect to the social trust fund, the social housing trust fund. The social housing trust fund actually is a game changer in the sense that it helps us to, create that level of financing that is needed with respect to this. So, for instance, there's going to be that land allocation that will come in for such communities, but that will not be further cascaded into with respect to how the private sector, for instance, you look at crowdfunding, for instance, where you actually get funds from, maybe from luxury housing, those that actually live in eyebrow areas, contributing to this trust fund or through that trust fund initiative, and ensuring that beyond just, let's say allocating land, we are empowering them financially to be able to support their ambition to, build these facilities over a stretch of this period. And also, not just that, there is also going to be the developers that will try as much as possible to incentivize, to enable them, also to enable them and create those opportunities for, that affordable housing using, this particular model that we've identified. So those are like the key areas that we're looking at, and we know for sure that if it is successful, it's going to be successful, just ensuring that we are engaging, with everybody, not just leaving out a certain community or leaving out a certain partner or stakeholder in how we go about, improving on the standards of housing, affordable housing in Lagos State.
Then, okay. All right.
Okay. It's been a very interesting conversation. Anyways, I wonder how the candidate himself will have attempted all of these questions. Okay, so let's talk about the reforms that are expected to take place in the public sector through innovations and cultural transformation. And one of the things that was really brought up here is the fact that the Lagos State public sector appears to be serving some people at the detriment of the greater majority. And that means, the bulk of wealth or the commonwealth that is supposed to move around is absolutely in the hands of a few people. And if you look at most of the plans that we have here in the manifestos now of, Mr. GBADEBO, RHODES, VIVOUR, it's clear that, the Lagos project will be financed majorly, on the capital intensive level by maybe, private partnership in this case now. So how do you intend to do all of these things if we agree that the system we have here favors a few people, and then you want to bring in private investors into this? How do you convince them, to buy into the project?
Okay, all right. I think for public sector reforms, that requires a lot of political will. Pardon me, but a lot of times that's what it entails at the end of the day. And political will really means that you clearly understand or you clearly identify the real gaps within the public sector, and you've already stated them. So beyond this gap, some of the things that need to be done is there needs to be a form of improved social contract. And this improved social contract is saying that how do we ensure that, one, we are getting the best out of the public sector, right? And at the same time, we are also creating a welfare structure for, the public sector where they will see that their work is also being, rewarded in a form, through this welfare scheme. So these things are very important. We are also going to still work with the existing, for instance, public service. That doesn't mean we are going to, lay off. No, we are going to work with the existing public service. But beyond that, for instance, we have the OCCI, and the OCCI, that's the Office of Transformation, Creativity and Innovation. We are going to play a key role in terms of doing that level of transformation. So we need to move, our public service from a fixed mindset to a growth mindset that, also leverages technology and even automation in a way that is done complementary to improving on the standards of how they function. So this is that key, right? And even just beyond, like what you mentioned, the private sector, we are not going to just say we are bringing private sector in and just using the private sector to run the public sector alone. No, that's not the idea. We need to work in tandem, because we know that there are a lot of learning both the private and the public sector can actually do from. There are a lot of learnings. There are learnings within the public sector, and there are also learnings, from the private sector to the public sector. So all of these are things that we also consider, and the constant engagement that needs to go into thinking around this public reform are things that we've already even laid out on the plan on how we go about, achieving some of these public sector reforms.
All right, then, moving on now. Thank you very much, Mr. Manuel. Moving on now to security. All right, this is security of the lives of Lagosians. There's a whole lot that we see here. Establishment of real-time security surveillance and response infrastructure. We'll also see here technology deployment of 24/7 responsive ethical surveillance, tracking and analysis, especially in reported hotspots. All right, and so this needs to be backed up with good data, actually, because how do you ensure that every citizen is trackable?
All right, and to also come in there, it's not just trackable, but doing it ethically.
Okay.
It's very important because we know that there is always that thin line between you tracking individuals and also invading people's privacy. So the data governance around how you go about this is something that you've mentioned, which is very key. For us, that means that we need to clearly identify some of the privacy infractions that can actually take place in collecting data. So we are very concerned about freedom of information, for instance, which is going to tie into how we envisage the whole transparency network within the government of GBADEBO and VIVOUR. So that means that the data that is being collected, being processed, being used at the end of the day, will go through user consent. There's going to be that consent. Beyond that, there's going to be a proper validation of this data in such a way that you can actually make use of that data in a meaningful way. So you are using it to even move beyond just ability to track, citizens, also deliver public service, efficient public service. So these things are really key, and it also is going to be backed with, serious investment in cyber security, because we don't want our data to just be act or exactly. So those are things that we've thought through, and we know that we'll be able to achieve this based on what we've already have, set out.
Now, but what about providing employment for the area boys, because that is a major issue in Lagos, and that's actually a good one that we saw, or that our researchers saw from the manifesto. Providing support and providing some sort of skills development, support as regards substance abuse and counseling and whatnot, employment for area boys and all. This is a major issue in Lagos State. I think Lagosians would agree. So, what exactly are the things that you intend to put in place, in order to refocus the energies of these guys into more productive areas?
Okay, so the first thing is to, again, still back to what I've also believed in, is to ensure that GRB is not just your regular governor, where there's a lot of that disparity or creating classism or elitism. There needs to be that proper engagement, with this sort of the admirals especially. It's very important, because that engagement means that they gradually also cross what you are trying to do here. And so that's like the first step to be taken. And the second step that we should be taking is to identify the skills that we think that each of, to create like a database set of some of these algorithms. And that can be done, still working with the responsible, unions that actually have them in their custody, work with them, formalize them in a way, and also gradually start, bringing out this set of training schemes like the skills development, and also giving them that orientation program. This is a lot of work, but we still believe that it can be done. There is no way we want to transform Lagos and not really take some bold plans that other governments have actually ignored for maybe political reasons or for social reasons.
All right.
Okay. Over to me then. Okay, so talking about the environment, under E, you have transformed Lagos into an environmentally sustainable and livable city. And there's some very interesting points which talks about creating access to clean water, implementation of the Lagos climate action plan, creating eco-friendly tourist parks to protect Lagos wetlands, and also to be used as non-motorized transit point. You may want to shed more light on this, but from our researchers, the comment here is that what about upstream actions? That is upgrading of dump sites, material recovery centers, and creating road access to dump sites, which usually is a problem whenever it rains. So basically, can you tell us the plans and then this other gap that has been noted? What would be the approach to it?
Okay, so what we intend to do is we intend to create like a comprehensive wetland and flooding policy program, and this is something that is very important because that now further cascades into some of the things that we've identified. So it might come in pilot cases, for instance, where you identify certain sections within Lagos State that you can actually, start the wetland program on. So that's to address that. Then the other part around upgrading, dome sites, MRFs, and the like, and even creating that access, roads, is that these things are actually complementary. We are not leaving them out. What we see is this. Why we know that this is also very important because we might not have included this right now in the manifesto, and it's something we can always modify. We also see that they are complementary, really. When you look at our plan for the waste management, we think that these actions are also areas that will also complement whatever actions we have, in store, especially for waste management. So that's the way we see all of this.
Okay. Let's talk about one other thing, which is accelerate Lagos as a center for quality education and smart learning. And I mean, from what we have in the manifesto, it's on record that Lagos is having a current population of about 20 million people, with well over 1 million that are unemployed, with a poverty rate of about 8.5%, and there's a projection that it could be the most populated city by 2100, which is really scary. But now let's talk about most of the things here. You talked about the major gaps, outdated curriculum that does not ensure quality education at international standard. You also talk about the teacher reward system, which is poor and does not align with the success of students at school, especially at external exams like WAEC and all of that. How do you want to put in side by side a workable system where education is going to be very key in Lagos, and not just formal education? Now we're talking about having a system where even while you're in school, you're learning something that could help you to stand well, skill development, acquisition. How do you want to bring that into the system?
Okay, so what we plan to do is firstly we are looking at a possibility, we are looking at a place where, for instance, like you mentioned, the teacher reward system is something that needs to be highly considered, right? We are also looking at the fact that we want to be able to create, we want to be able to create infrastructure, especially for areas, for areas where we know that the public schools to a large extent have been marginalized. So where we know that they don't even have the basic amenities for schooling. So we've been able to set certain studies that have been carried out, especially independent studies that look at these areas. However, beyond that is to also identify the fact that when we look at even primary education, we want to be able to bring in the local government into the picture.
Okay.
Now, and to achieve that means that we need to now start looking at how best do we improve on government administration. This is just using it as an example. And that is one very major issue that even GBADEBO himself is well aware of, and is something that he actually keen on improving, especially when it comes to local government administration. So these are things that we've clearly identified, and we know that it is achievable when we look at especially schooling. So I'll just stop at that.
All right, but still on education, I'm going to take you back a little bit. I mean, first is the quality of teaching schools. All right, being below par. When you said that you will engage and you capitalize private schools in low economies to immediately accommodate out of school children. What about the quality of teaching schools when you start building sustainable infrastructure? But then another thing that I also like to push alongside that is one of your action plan is to redesign and resource e-learning to cover 100% of public schools. Don't you think this will be a challenge if students do not have the resources to continue this e-learning at home? Because there's a saying, practice makes perfect. I'm in school from 8 to 4 p.m. and I get my system in school. I'm able to do my work. And I get home and I don't have access to it. So don't you think it will be a challenge in that area?
Well, I don't see it as a challenge because this is supposed to be a short to medium term, plan. However, there's still going to be a lot of investment in the infrastructure for learning as we move forward towards completion of the 4 year term. That's one way to look at it. In terms of also the quality of teaching, again, this is complementary. We know that the teaching standards right now as it concerns Lagos State is actually very poor. And these are things that we've also identified that they need to also come in, in hand in hand with whatever plan we have with respect to either we're developing the curriculum, we are redesigning it, or we are even catering to out-of-school children. So all of these are things that are complementary. However, I think the reasons why such platforms like yours exist is to co-create in a way, which I think I respect. These are things that we can always look at, also modify, and to ensure that all of these areas that you mentioned can even, be better captured. So yes, I totally agree with this position too.
All right, but what about establishment of state-owned open universities to accommodate more students to pursue higher learning? That's another thing. One aspect you said to establish state-owned open universities to accommodate more students. Then you also said here that to train a minimum of 100,000 employed graduate school leavers dropouts. Why not strengthen existing state universities and invest instead in adult education?
Yeah, so again, it's complementary. We are not leaving that out. When we say state-owned open university, we are also saying that at the same time, we are also going to strengthen this. What we are also trying to achieve here is what we've done with the manifesto is we are bringing out, some of those points which we think that a lot of times when we look at the politicians, they leave it out. Nobody wants to take that bold move. But you cannot transform a Lagos education in Lagos if you are not speaking to things like this. So in addition, the strengthening of existing schools, that is a no-brainer. That is already something that is in the plan. Okay. And that will be done in complementary with what we already have here.
All right, let's keep moving now. You're listening to the Manifesto review of the Labour Party governorship candidate in person of Mr. GBADEBO's VIVOUR, and we have the phone line Mr. Emmanuel Oladipo. He's representing him or speaking on his behalf this evening. All right, so we'll be opening up the phone line now, just in case anyone also has anything to say as regards the conversation thus far. All right, so the phone line is open, 091 36 000 410, 091 36 000 410. That's the number you can call, or you can put a phone, you can send a text message or a WhatsApp message, just in case you're unable to reach us via the phone line and you have something to add or to ask as regards the conversation this evening as we look through the manifesto of the Labour Party governorship candidate in Lagos State. Okay, Now, moving on now, we also have here, very interestingly, moving on to healthcare. There's a whole lot of conversation around that one in Lagos State. There's a lot of it. We had some conversation as regards insurance and out-of-pocket payments and all of that. One of the action plans that you have in your manifesto is equitable distribution of medical health facilities across the state. Also, I'm seeing here expansion of healthcare facilities to include mobile clinics in remote and informal communities. All right. So, looking at this now, this is a good one. There are so many opportunities that we can see from this one. But then we're also looking at it from this perspective. What about the competing community-based actors? We're talking about traditional birth attendants, that are usually trusted more by the people.
Okay. So the community-based actors are not going to be left out. They are actually very important. For us, we actually, we are in fact, when we were doing like a form of what I call it like a feasibility study in that point. What we did was to also interact with them and to get a view of some of these things. And what we're planning to do is to also find a way to kind of formalize them in a form. Also using the current model through the actions that we've mentioned. So the mobile clinics, they are going to play a very major role to ensuring that is achievable. We are not leaving them out. So they're going to play those active roles like I mentioned, and to ensuring that we can achieve some of the things that we have, especially knowing that equitable distribution of healthcare requires everybody in the room, not just having government. It requires the private sector and even to further cascade into some of these traditional or traditional based attendants, for instance. So those things are things that are actually multifaceted. However, what we intend to do is to bring everybody into the room to ensure that these things are we can actually achieve them.
All right then. Thank you very much. Still moving on now. I mean, it is quite an extensive one. The manifesto of the Labour Party governorship candidates. We have to put that on record also. But let's keep moving. Here we have we also see some opportunities here as regards the private and public investment in technology towards increasing adoption within the states. We see here that there's the action or the plan to establish a technology park, all right, with keen interest of partnering with the private sector players willing to serve as developers and operators, to ensure technology startups can benefit from both fiscal and non-fiscal benefits. All right, we see that this actually could be a good one, a good opportunity if the universities in the state can also be major stakeholders in this technology park, don't you think?
Yes, definitely. We think the academia and the schools actually play a critical role. So even beyond that, what we're saying is we're going to be able to see a growth of some of these research papers. So a model where some of these research papers or research ideas are transformed from just being research papers into MVPs. And that can only be possible when you have a part of this movement that has to some of these ideas from generating into prototypes that can be used to transform certain aspects within the so yes, the schools are going to play active role for this technology path.
Okay. All right, so let's see, Deji, what do you think?
Okay, so let me still look through.
Okay. I mean, we have to agree that it is quite, an extensive one.
There's quite a lot.
It's a lot. It's a lot to look through.
It's a 12-page document, Word document. So
with a lot of action plans that if we were to look through.
There was a lot of active, consultation
to go into
that actually went into. Yes, and so that's why you have it more detailed in that sense.
All right. So shall we look into investment in judicial reforms now? Looking at modernizing our laws for efficient, faster delivery of judgments. Looking to transform Lagos into a regional, international financial sector. But there's no mention of a made of Lagos enforcement. Like what exactly, which is what would he give for the rule of law to take its place?
Okay. So for us, one thing that is critical is also enforcement, and we are not leaving that out in terms of ensuring that whatever reforms that we are putting in place need to properly factor in enforcement. And for us to be able to achieve this means that there needs to be a trifecta of technology, process, and even good governance. So these things are things that are very key to be able to unlock this. So when we also, on the place, what we are looking at is the fact that we want to be able to ensure that this law improve on the standards of how we do business. It also protects the vulnerable, and to a large extent, especially it protects women, for instance. That's where we are also looking at. We want to be able to also protect rights of individuals, because these things are very close. We know that in Lagos today there is like a total law breakdown of law and order. To a large extent. You go on the road, it's either you find last man beating someone or someone is beating last man. So we don't want to create that kind of establishment. We want to instead try and find a better way of improving on our judicial system. And for me, this is me talking now, not just GRE. It's something that I actually am very particular about, because I think a lot of the growth and development that Lagos State is going to enjoy is when you have a more when you have modernized laws that actually improve on the standards of how you operate within the state. So that's how I actually look at it when we look at judicial reform.
Okay, talking about law enforcement, sorry. I can't find it. I think somewhere in the manifesto you were talking about turning LASMA into a smart traffic city management outfit. What does that mean? I don't know if you can recall that in the manifesto. The approach towards LASMA.
Okay, the approach is this. We want to be able to improve on how enforcement compliance is being done when we look at especially LASMA. And to do that, you need to be able to leverage technology. I know right now, Lagos State government is doing, has body cams installed there. But how effective is this? Doesn't this also promote unethical surveillance? So what we are doing is to also find a way to leverage technologies, tools such as artificial intelligence, for instance, where you can actually study patterns of some of these officials, ensuring that they can have unique identifiers that are actually applied to each of these officers. And beyond that, is to also look at a lot of retraining that needs to be done with respect to how they interact with the citizenry, and how they ensure that compliance is achieved without you having to use force. Also, there's going to when we are looking at is our ability to also employ more last mile officers. And at that point in time, when we are employing these last mile officials, all of these things that I mentioned before will be things that will impact them in a way. And also they can also serve as some of our ambassadors to improve on to jumpstart that transformation that will require for LASTMA to be that smart regulator for transport and traffic management.
All right. Okay. In conclusion, now, I mean, I must admit, it's a well detailed, manifesto that we have here.
In conclusion, though, before you conclude, just one last thing, because it's a lot, just as you said. I just want to say something. I just feel like, in everything that we've looked into, it's a lot, that the Labour Party seems to want to take on. There's no time frame, in their manifesto, but then it's a lot that they want to take on. I would just want to ask just one quick one before Okwe, concludes. Don't you think that with some polling done in Lagos, you should try to maybe prioritize to know, because taking on all of this is going to be capital intensive, very expensive. We don't want a situation where projects are abandoned and then there's no continuity and all of that. So don't you think, to be able to actually hit major areas, taking some sort of polls to prioritize which should come first should be done?
More like a needs assessment.
Okay, so that has already been done. And in terms of this problem, what we did was to carry out a qualitative approach towards this. That's one. And we're also leveraging studies that have been done, that actually point to housing, traffic, security, and even healthcare as major challenges that the average Lagosian faces. Now, in terms of prioritizing, what we are looking is we are taking a phased approach that looks at short, medium, and long term. So, short term, for instance, is where areas around actions such as the engagement with dot aiming platforms that can come on board to improve areas around traffic management. Those are just quick things. And when we look at short term, we are looking at 6 months to a year. Medium term for 2 years. We are also identifying like issues around housing. We are identifying issues like healthcare and even education. And for long term takes into consideration from short to long. So that's where the launch part, which is the real project, comes in. And this will require that folks are well used. So, and that's why when we hear GBADEBO, we always echo transparency. Transparency finds a way to impact every aspect. It impacts aspects like efficient public service delivery. It impacts aspects like quality of life. It impacts aspects around quick turnaround time. Ensuring that you deliver on projects, and you are able to do more with less. So that's one aspect. The other aspect is the fact that transparency also helps with investment attraction. No investor wants to do business with government that we cannot have access to data that can use for due diligence, for instance. All of these things are things that we've already understood. They are possible within forward. We just need to be as much as possible practical and at the same time transparent and inclusive in our approach. So I think I'll just end it there.
All right.
Okay, in conclusion, let me read the first line of that. It said Lagos State's development, just like its traffic, has reached a gridlock, and this is due to aggregation of self-serving political agenda and that's exactly where I want to come in from. Your party, the Labour Party, is coming with a different narrative, and one of it is to break the monopoly of the leadership structure of Lagos. What do you want to do in respect to that, and how do you get a lot of people on board?
Well, in terms of that, this requires a lot of political action. You can only achieve this when you clearly have a plan, and that is why this manifesto exists in the first place. To do that, like to break that monopoly, that requires that means you want to start reviewing the secrets of what we intend to do in terms of an external. Well, our strategy is clear and it's open to everyone. Is that we are doing a lot of engagement with several kind of communities where we know that they are actually very important, in terms of the business. We are also, and that's why when you find this manifesto, it is detailed because there is no way as a Lagosian with one part or two parts within this manifesto does not impact it. There is no way. So it's about telling this thought and ensuring that we can get as much votes as possible and improve on the standards of living for all Lagosians.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Emmanuel Oladipo. Thank you. It was quite, a very, very comprehensive one we had this evening. I think we can wrap things up at this point.
Thank you, Mr. Emmanuel from the Labour Party, and the journey continues. We hope to have discuss the themes agenda of the APC government of Lagos on Friday. Then next week, Wednesday, we should be looking at the manifesto of the PDP. This has been brought to you by Rethinking Cities with other partners organizing this: University of Lagos Center for Housing and Sustainable Development, GLDF, Global Leadership Development Foundation, and the Political Change in African Cities called PACE, in collaboration with Erich Boss-Trigger, Nigeria, helping us to have this conversation. The researchers are from the University of Lagos Center for Housing and Sustainable Development. This particular episode has also been supported by Sakufa. Big thanks to Dr. Temila Deshason for doing a very lovely review of the manifesto too. So looking forward to be back here on Friday to look at the other two political parties. I think it's been an engaging discussion, and wish Lagos the best.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, that's it. And in a few minutes, of course, Telemore will take on the booth. All right, stay with us. This is still Mainland 98.3 FM.
Stop paying attention to the hustle and bustle of Lagos. Take a chill pill.
Problem in the feeling.